Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening. We are reading from the complete works of Swami Ramakrishnananda, one of the 16 direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And we are in a little chapter called Why This Love of Self? And Atma will begin reading where it says, there was once an opium eater.
There was once an opium eater who came to a wise physician to be cured of his weakness. "My dear fellow," the physician said, "you've been in the habit of taking such a large quantity of opium every day. Now it'd be possible for you to give it up all at once. But do this. Weigh the amount you take each day with a piece of chalk on the other scale. But before you put the chalk on the scale, always draw a line with it on the floor." The patient did this. At the end of 6 months, he found that the piece of chalk had been reduced to half its original size, and also the quantity of opium he took. By the end of the year, the chalk was gone, and the man had completely broken himself off the habit. So everything should be done gradually. We cannot all at once think that we are not the body. As long as we believe that our happiness comes through the senses, we shall love it and cling to it. When, however, we begin to realize that if we get pleasure through our sense life, we also get much misery, then we shall begin to look elsewhere. So by degrees, as we search for the source of happiness in us, or as we try to find that thing in us which makes us love ourselves, we shall move back through layer after layer of our being until we reach our real nature, that Atman or self on which our existence rests. Then the bondage of our lower nature will be broken.
Yeah, so of course the trick is persistence as well. You have to keep at it. You have to keep doing it. You can't give up on the chalk. You can't say, oh, well, I don't need this chalk anymore, because then you won't break the habit. And you have to do spiritual practices little by gradually too. You might not find it that enjoyable, but if you do it for, say, 10 minutes a day, and then gradually maybe 11 minutes the next day, and 12 minutes the next, and so forth, and pretty soon you can do your meditation for a much longer period. And so this is the way we have to approach life. We gradually increase the things that are good for our spiritual life, as we decrease the things that are not so good for our spiritual life. Okay.
It is the greatest relief when we get rid of egoism. It feels as if a heavy burden had rolled off from us. All at once, all our doubts, fears, anxieties, and troubles disappear. When the I is gone, then nothing remains but God. Let him exist alone in his glory. Why should I, this little I, do anything? All is he, and he is perfect, full, complete. Deny the ego. It is the cause of all our miseries. This egotism is the real hellfire. What in the West they call Satan, we Hindus call ego. All forms of selfishness and suffering spring from it. To be rid of it is mukti, or freedom.
Yes, well, we've already talked a lot about the ego and how Sri Ramakrishna said that if you can at once realize that you're not the doer, you'll realize that you are Brahman in this very lifetime. So that's the trick. That's the goal. And of course, we've also talked about how our egoism is a genetic invention, and it's what allows us to survive in the physical world, and that's why it's so difficult to get rid of it, because it's inborn, and everybody that's alive has a long genetic past of people that have survived long enough to have kids. And so here we are, the product of many generations of people that managed to survive. And so nobody's the product of people that didn't survive long enough to have kids. It doesn't work that way. So that's why it's such a difficult thing to break through. So let's see what his final paragraph is in our little chapter here.
When man gains the consciousness of his pure soul nature, he becomes perfectly happy. That one has freed himself from slavery, who knows that all the things which we want are to be found inside himself, not outside. For then all want ceases, and want eats into man not only in this life, but in all lives to come. If then everything we want is inside, if we have there an inexhaustible fountain of bliss, is it not foolish to keep all our interests on the outside? Our pleasures, our pursuits, our companions, all outside ourselves? So long as we do this, we shall never get rid of our miseries and taste the happiness. As the Bhagavad Gita declares, he whose joy is within, whose pleasure is within, and whose light is within, that yogi, being wholly united with Brahman, the Supreme, attains to freedom absolute. Only he whose heart is detached from external experiences tastes the happiness which is to be found in the highest self alone.
And of course, here it says, he whose joy is within. Well, everybody's joy is within. The trouble is we don't know it. That's the trouble. It's not like some people have joy within and others don't. It's that some people have discovered that they have the joy within, and other people haven't discovered it. And so it's the discovery and the realization that the joy lies within. That's the crux of the matter, not that it's whether it's there or not. So now we're going to continue this line of thinking, I suppose, in the chapter titled Search After Happiness. So I have a feeling he's going to say a lot of the same things here, and he's just going to perhaps come at it at a slightly different angle. So let's see how he comes at it now.
Everyone, from the highest man to the lowest animalcule, is searching after happiness. Some believe in their own muscle and fight for their happiness. Some go beyond nature and try to get satisfaction of desires and happiness from the invisible powers which support the universe. But everyone is seeking happiness outside through the five senses. Even in heaven is the same sort of happiness. This happiness is the result of the union of the physical universe with man through his five senses. When they come together in a harmonious manner, happiness is the result. When they unite inharmoniously, pain is the result.
Yes, I think he's making the point that this idea of heaven is on a subtle realm, and it's actually just a subtle realm version of the current gross universe. And so while that's one step in the right direction. It's not the ultimate goal, because it's still in the level of duality of sorts. Okay, let's go on.
This is the experience of all who seek happiness outside. Always the man must struggle and suffer. He must go through much pain to get a little happiness. He must throw away much to get little. In heaven it is the same. The search for happiness is a terrible bondage, even in heaven, for he cannot stay forever. But ask yourself whether you love liberty, quietness, peace, bliss. Once the answer comes that you want all these. Everyone wants peace, but never is any peace to be found here. You even have to struggle if you would stand on your own legs. Every action of the body implies struggle.
Yes, of course, and we've also mentioned that Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, comes all at once. It's not really three different things. It's our reading of the infinite, undivided, unchanging in positive terms. And so we want that freedom, we want that peace, we want that bliss. And sometimes it feels like we need to go in three directions to get it. But in actuality, when you go beyond the sense pleasures and beyond the realm of the physical universe, then they will all come at once. But that's the ultimate goal of spiritual life. All right, let's go on.
That which transcends thirst for happiness, thirst for wealth, and desire is called emancipation. These three bind man. They hold him fast to samsara, the wheel of birth and death. The poor soul is in that wheel, sometime going up, sometime going down, never at rest. Is there then no way out? Yes, there is a way out. There is surely someone above me who keeps me down. That power a tyrant? No, he is my real father. Here real means eternal. Something cannot come out of nothing. Something must come out of something. So my real father must be an eternal father. Naked I came into this world without caste or creed. I was brought here by this power. If so, what is my relation to him? As a servant to the master? As a child to the father? But he is my eternal father. With him I am eternally connected. Therefore it is my duty to obey this real father, not my temporary father. The temporary father asks me to act contrary to the will of the eternal father. Then I must disobey him, as Prahlada did.
Yes, Prahlada had a wicked father, and Prahlada was a great devotee, and eventually conquered the tyrant father. But that's a whole other story. Wonder if he's going to tell it here. So, of course, these are all metaphors. Our true self is not really a father or a mother or anything. It's really ourselves, but we think of it in these terms about eternal father or eternal mother in order to have a goal to reach. But once we reach the goal, we realize we're one with that. So, but we use these terms in order to formulate a goal and the idea of how to get out of where we are. So when he says, is there no way out? Well, really the only way out is in, as one of our former monks wrote a song to that effect, that the only way out was in. So let's see how he goes about this problem. Okay.
You know how happy a man becomes who learns that his father has £1 million. So when I find that I have a father who is Lord of the whole universe, how much happier must I be? Again, just as out of a horse is born, and out of an ass is born, so out of God, a God must be born. Therefore, if God is my Father, I must be as good as God himself, and as happy as he. If I would realize this, I must give up the little for the great. I must not tie myself to the little love for earthly relations. If I would have true Ananda, bliss, I must give up the little happiness of the world. If I would make myself one with the great spirit of the universe, I must cease to identify myself with the present environment. To go to him, I must give up all attachment. He is spirit, so I must seek him in spirit. He is consciousness, so I must search him for him in my consciousness. When consciousness leaves the body, at that time the body becomes like a chair or a table. It is your consciousness which makes the body different from the matter of the chair. But you've so identified yourself with your body that you're not conscious that it is a burden. If you have a load on your back, you feel it. But you do not feel the load of the body. Yet the weight of it you will know by lifting a dead body. So if you carry this load so easily, it shows how powerful you are. And the Atman carries it as easily as it would a straw.
Yeah, so here again, we're using this idea to get out of Maya. Remember, we are one with God, and as he says that if God is the Father, then we must be God as well. Well, in that sense, yes, any soul that is born into this world of Maya came from the infinite, undivided, unchanging Brahman, but it's temporarily forgotten that identity, so it feels different, and so it feels like it's been born. But you have to remember out of what you were born. You were born out of Brahman into this world of Maya, and so you want to get back to that infinite source. And so that's the goal of spiritual practices, is to find ways of reminding ourselves that we are not really of the nature of this Maya, but we are really the nature from which we came, from the infinite source, from Brahman. And of course we call that part of us which is really one with that the Atman. Yeah, and he talks about how the consciousness, when it leaves the body is just like a table or a chair. It's just an object. And people have that experience, and out of the body experiences or near-death experiences, people will see their body, and they just see it as they see the other things in the room. There are just all these objects in the room, and their body just happens to be one of them. So we know that we're really not the body. Even if we haven't ourselves had that kind of experience, we can understand from the experiences of others that this is the reality, that we just haven't had that experience ourselves. But in reality, we're not this body. We're simply inhabiting the body, and it's the Atman just inhabits this body for this short time of this life, this little infinitesimally short time. Our lives are incredibly short, even compared to recorded history, they're short, and then compared to the life of the earth, they're really short, and then compared to the life of the universe, they're infinitesimally short. So our current state being a particular body-mind complex inhabiting a particular body-mind complex is really a very brief one. It's just as brief as a dream, and it has that nature of being a dream. It's not really a reality in the normal sense. But of course, a dream has a certain reality as a dream, but it doesn't have the permanent reality of the waking state. And similarly, this state doesn't have the reality of our ultimate nature. All right, so continue.
If God is a conscious being, he must be sought in consciousness, in the Atman, in the self. And you must move inside yourself, not in matter, because it is unconscious. First, you must discover him inside yourself. Spirit lives in spirit. Where spirit is, there cannot be matter. So if you would seek spirit, you must seek him in spirit. And where is spirit? Inside. So you must search for him inside yourself. God lives in the heart of every living being. Where does the great God live? Man is his abode. He lives in man. He lives in man means that he lives in spirit. That is the real temple of God. There may be temples outside, but they are only photographs of this human temple. Temples have, 5 walls. Just as man has the 5 sheaths, and one must pass them all to come to God in the inner shrine. That is the seat of God. To go to him, you must cross the big walls. You will not find him outside. So, in the same way, you will never find God in the universe, because he's always hidden inside the heart.
Yeah, it's interesting, the Hindu temples are often built in a symbolic plan like that, with the different layers of buildings, sort of buildings within buildings. And you go inside the building, and then you go inside another section, and inside another section, and finally into the innermost sanctum sanctorum, which symbolizes going through these different sheaths that we experience ourselves being embodied in, to the ultimate source that lies within. So that's really the temple. The way many of them are built symbolic of our particular human condition, and the way that the sacred self is embodied within many layers, many sheaths, inside, deep inside the temple. So as you go inside the temple, you're symbolically going in deeper and deeper into yourself, into that true self where the Atman resides, symbolized by the deity, whether it be a Shiva or Krishna or a mother aspect or any aspect that happens to be in that particular temple. But that symbolizes the spiritual essence that is your spiritual essence. All right, let's go on.
If then God is in me, I can go to him easily. I don't have to buy a ticket. It requires no effort on my part. In reality, however, it is the most difficult thing in the world. If you have the power to go inside yourself, then you have conquered the whole universe. It's not Alexander the Great or Napoleon who's conquered the world. Their conquest was only temporary. It was the carpenter's son, a cowherd boy. They are ruling the world, and they are able to do it because they went inside themselves.
Of course, they're referring to Jesus, the carpenter's son, and Krishna, the cowherd boy, the avatars that are essentially ruling the world, in that they are the spiritual leaders that so many people worship. And so that's, of course, and they're not the only ones, but he's just using those as 2 examples. And indeed, all these people think they're going to conquer the world. You'd think they'd read history and see how none of these great conquerors managed to really last for very long. They might think that their empire lasts a long time, but it's really, again, a blink of the eye. So theirs is really not greatness, it's kind of great stupidity in seeking to unite things in a physical realm on the outside. All right, let's go on.
What does it mean to go inside yourself? To go inside means to go away from earthly attachments, from ambition, from all your ideas and desires. Some may say that meditation is no better than dreaming. Oh, let a man do something instead of merely sitting idle. Everyone must work. But what is the hardest thing in the world? To give up work or activity. How many can give up work? None. Hunger will drive you back. You cannot sit long in one place. Man is Mr. So-and-so. His nature is to work. But man as spirit is beyond all work. I'm telling you to seek within this little mannequin, the great man. This is very hard because to do so, you will have to give up all your pet ideas. People ask, why go inside where it's all darkness? Why not stay in the world which is lighted by the sun, the moon, and stars? So 99% of mankind prefer to stay outside themselves. And they go on and on in this physical universe. Therefore, it is said in the Gita, out of thousands and thousands, someone will go inside himself. And out of thousands who do, some will find me.
And of course, that's the trick of karma yoga, is that he's saying here that everyone ends up being forced to work. We can't just sit idle forever because things like hunger and thirst and bodily functions eventually get you up. But the idea is to do your work without attachment and remembering all along that you are not really the doer, that you are simply the Atman inhabiting a body and a mind, and you are appearing to do this work in this world of Maya, but in reality you are that infinite spirit that is unchangeable. And so you're just temporarily part of this drama or this play or this dream world. And with that attitude, you strengthen the idea that your true nature is not of this world, and that it's not of the external things, that you can be detached from the things of the world even while you are working in the world. All right.
Some may go inside, but they meet that terrible enemy, the mind. Even Arjuna said the mind is so rebellious and hard to control that to curb it, I consider as hard as to curb the wind. So against this you have to fight. And how to fight? You must purify the mind. And how to purify the mind? Develop love for God. By means of love, we can do everything. If you love God with your whole heart, then it's very easy to give up. Love is a natural thing. Even an idiot can love. If you can direct your love towards spirit, it will lead you to spirit. It is these earthly attachments which hold you down like a captive balloon. You're tied to your earthly relations, tied to your money, tied to your ambition. But cut all these ties, and at once you will go up. Just as a hungry baby runs to the mother, so you must increase your love for God. Then you will go up towards God, and you will realize Him. What will happen then? You will be the happiest man in the whole universe. You will be like a little child. The father and mother are slaves to the baby. It may go anywhere without any feeling of care or responsibility, but they must always take care of it. So if you can become the baby of God, well, you may be happier than even God Himself.
Yeah. So all of these mental tricks that we can use to overcome this realm of Maya. There's a good one. Just think of yourself as the little child of God, and God has to take care of you. Or as Girish did, or Ramakrishna did with Girish. Girish had to give him his power of attorney, which is sort of the same idea from the adult standpoint. The child doesn't have to give his power of attorney. The parent just takes it. The child doesn't have the ability to be his own power of attorney. And so it's a natural process of just letting God take care of you. All right. Got a few more paragraphs here. It's only 7 o'clock according to that clock. All right.
There is another path, that of discrimination, but it is very difficult. Only a few are intelligent enough to follow it. All have preached bhakti, Christ, Mohammed, all have preached the path of devotion. But only 2 have preached the path of discrimination, Buddha and Shankara. Buddha preached pure jnana, the path of wisdom, and what he taught was so difficult that few can understand it. They began to misunderstand soon as he was dead. Shankara has preached a very different path. Very definite path.
Definite path, yeah.
First he says, you must purify the mind. Now to do this, there are 4 methods. Discriminating the real from the unreal. This you can do by science and by study of books. But modern science will not do this for you. You must study the Vedic science and learn to disentangle soul from matter. Second, you must cease to care for earthly happiness. You must control the senses. You must bear all sorts of difficulties without caring to remedy them. You must be dead to earthly enjoyments. You must have faith in the scriptures, as well as those who explain the scriptures. You must not regard this world as your home, your spirit, and you must seek to return to spirit land.
Yeah, I would take a little exception in that. I think modern science now has come to the point where if you really study modern science and take it seriously and not come at it from the standpoint of a materialist, the modern science tells you that this world isn't real. If you look at the way quantum mechanics and relativity deal with the world, you come to the conclusion of, my God, it really isn't a real world. It's a magic show. It's a quantum magic show that appears this way because we're taking the opportunity to look at it. And as we look at it, it appears in various ways. And depending on our intentions, on the way we look at it, it might appear some way else. And so it has all the aspects of something that's not real. It is an appearance, not a reality. And so if you study science in that way, you find that you can discriminate that this really is not a real world, but one of sort of a make-believe world or a fictitious world or a world of appearance, probably would be the best way to put it in scientific terms. And of course, he's kind of left out Raja Yoga here. And I'm sure many of you have read the Yoga Aphorisms of Patanjali, and by the time you get through all the yamas and niyamas, you think, my goodness, if I could do all these preliminary steps, I'd already be enlightened. And so again, it's a difficult path. There are many prerequisites to following all of its details, but we can combine all these yogas. That's what Swami Vivekananda and his teacher Sri Ramakrishna and all the other direct disciples would recommend, is that you can blend these yogas. It doesn't mean you can't use aspects of Raja Yoga, even if you haven't conquered all of the the yamas and niyamas, the observances and the things that you want to avoid, but you're striving towards them, and then you work with the various techniques of Raja Yoga in order to move forward. But it's often done in conjunction with ideas of bhakti, where you have a devotional attitude, and your meditation practice is centered around a particular devotional figure. And so all of these paths can be combined together, and we can use aspects of this discrimination of the real from the unreal to convince ourselves to do the spiritual practices that we find in Raja Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga and so forth. So all of these yogas work together. We don't tend to think of them as just compartmentalized paths anymore, but that aspects of each path that can support the whole process of spiritual practices. All right.
True religion teaches not how to go to heaven, but how to go to God. To do this, you must give up this little self and realize the infinite self, which may be called God. Man should not seek sensual enjoyments, but should seek that which leads him to God. There is a natural sensual desire in every man, but this should not be degraded to brutal desire. Desire is good, but it should not be misdirected. Health must be preserved, because by means of this body, we may realize God. Why should I eat? Why should I visit holy places? These will preserve the body, and by this I shall be able to realize God. Why should I preserve these eyes? To see the perennial beauty of God.
Right, and of course, as he was mentioning earlier about heaven isn't really the goal. It's really just more subtle pleasures. People want to go to heaven because they picture it as a place where you enjoy great banquets, and there's all sorts of beauty, all sorts of lovely entertainment, harps playing, and beautiful dancers, and so forth. And so it's just putting the sensual enjoyments on a more subtle level. And so that's not really the goal. It's not really the goal to simply enjoy sensual things on a subtle level, but we want to go beyond that. All right.
What should be the duty of each individual soul? It is the duty of every man to be a worker? No. But every man should struggle to know the truth. The followers of truth have known that to be truth, which is one without a second. Inside man is the true temple. The 5 koshas, sheaths, are the 5 walls of the temple. The heart is the secret shrine. Here God dwells. The end and aim of every man should be to realize truth. But between him and truth, there is a big barrier. What? The mind. To remove this barrier, we must purify the mind, and this must be done by self-exertion. A man will have to have great patience, great perseverance. But when he persists and purifies the mind, he will break down all barriers and come face to face with the supreme truth. And then he will attain eternal peace and bliss.
And of course, sometimes we think of it as purifying the mind, sometimes we think of it as purifying the heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. In this case, he's using the mind, but it's purifying the heart really means to purify your desires. You're purifying your desires, and you want your desires all to go towards God. Purifying the mind, you want to not be distracted by thoughts going to the external world through the senses. So it doesn't matter which way you look at these things, it boils down to the same thing, really. We're trying to bring ourselves to look within and to go beyond the normal kinds of desires that we tend to want in the world. We don't have a lot of time, but
We're not meeting next week.
and yes, next week is Buddha's birthday celebration, and so we will be having that event instead in the temple. And Pravajika Dayaprana is putting on a wonderful show, and she has a Buddhist priest that's going to join us by Zoom and do some chanting. There's always the traditional recounting of the life of Buddha and bathing the baby Buddha, and then the chanting. And so it's a nice affair. I don't think we probably won't bother to start a new section, even though we have a couple of minutes. It's probably a good place to stop. We have the annual meeting for members tomorrow at 10. So if you're a member of the Vedanta Society, hopefully you have gotten a link and you can join us on Zoom. If you're not a member, someday you may want to consider becoming a member. That's the way we get our support from our loyal members that pledge a certain amount of dues. And so we're very grateful to all our members. And we can then present these things to everyone without charge, because people give freely of themselves in their dues and donations. And so and I have a bit of preparation still to do for tomorrow. So with that note, we'll end just a couple minutes early with a chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.